Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask Adam Live. Many folks have asked, and ASK is actually the acronym for Always Seek Knowledge. One of the things I've found in life is to always be interested, always be curious, always seek to understand a little bit more. Don't just take what someone says as fact, but maybe dig a little deeper, get that self understanding and self resonating. Each time something resonates with us, we turn it into a profound learning experience. And now we can take that learning to the next level, to something that actually changes our life. I found this to be the fact in my life, and I'm sure you will find it in yours. And if not, enjoy a few of these episodes of Ask Adam Live, and I am almost certain it will resonate with you. Welcome to today's episode, which is titled Navigating Change Pivot with Purpose. I'm Adam, and let's begin the show. Navigating change, pivoting with purpose, it's doing things on purpose, it's doing things for a reason. And what I want to do with this episode is to equip you with my pivot playbook, the 5 steps to turn any disruption into deliberate momentum. A little background about myself was I grew up on the water. So I learned to embrace that there's a certain ebb and flow to life. I segued that into real estate, into truck driving and dispatching, and segued that into sales of real estate, owning my own office, sales of insurance, a little bit of logistics, well, a lot of logistics, and now finding myself here speaking with you and sharing this, what I feel is just a vast amount of knowledge that I can't keep contained. And one of the things that allowed me to do that was my certification with neuroencoding, which allowed me to better understand myself. And it didn't happen overnight, but quite frankly, once I understood myself, understood a little bit more of why I do things and how they get done, the more I began to embrace my soul's purpose. And now I enjoy far more than anything I've ever done in my life what I'm doing now. And that's part of this episode, is that you can find this, your joy of life, if you will, or as the French call it, joie de vie. Change isn't the end of your story. It's the chapter where you, the hero, well, you level up. So, how can you level up, right? How can you face this reinvention, if you will? We're all encountering change to some degree, whether it's in our personal life with the change in our where we live, how we live, who we live with. Maybe it's a change at work. Maybe it's an occupational change, a career change. Maybe it's a suggestion from a friend or one of our episodes that you think, you know what, I would really enjoy doing something else. And you come to that profound idea of what it is, which is your soul's purpose, talking to you, telling you what you should be doing. And then you begin to find comfort. Although, because it's something new, you also get to discover discomfort, quite frankly, until this becomes, well, your new habit. So let's look at this. Why purposeful pivots matter. And let's look into the playbook. You know, I first started out as a first mate engineer, service provider, that then translated into transportation, which then segued into logistics. Quite frankly, that taught me resilience under pressure. Um, I was involved with the cannabis industry in Colorado, and that, with a little bit of corporate frustration, has put me where I'm at today. The average professional now changes careers 5 to 7 times. I'm on my fifth, hopefully my last, but it reminded me I shouldn't be uncomfortable with where I'm at. I'm actually the norm. I don't like to be normal, but doesn't hurt to know you're at least with the in crowd, right? I found with many of my clients and customers that these 5 to 7 career changes, yeah, they kind of bring up a little bit of what you've probably heard me talk about before, which is the toxic 10. Fear of failure, overwhelm, imposter syndrome. Sure, I've heard it most common from each and every one of them. Pivoting isn't starting over, it's starting from a lesson, it's starting from what you already know. What I hope this episode is providing to you is that you're going to build upon what you already know. And that next step takes you to that next level of experiences and learning where you can build that on top of the next level. And who knows, you could go several more levels from that, really depending on your age. And I don't want to say that age is a factor, but if you're in your 20s and 30s, hey, you may do all 5 of them in those 2 decades, and then you find your stability. You may find that you do 10 to 12 career changes before you find stability. And quite frankly, when you end up at about 50, don't worry that you've changed several times. That was the buildup of experience that you now are capitalizing, such as myself in my 50s, where I have that experience to bring to the table. And quite frankly, that's more valuable than any degree that you could hang on the wall. The pivot playbook. Now, of course, I'm a fan of acronyms. Ask Adam is one of them. And I don't think it would be a complete episode if I didn't have one. So here's the pivot playbook. P is plan the outcome. And here's the question is, what feels most alive to you? Again, this is sort of finding your soul's purpose, understanding a little bit of what you were designed to do, what you are favored to do. One of the things that helped me find what I was favored to do was vivid vision journaling. By just writing things out, even asking yourself a question, I found myself that when I meditate, when I'm grateful for 3 things, and then I write in my journal, even to ask general questions, I found that throughout the day, my subconscious was answering those questions, or at least giving me some vivid sign that was sharing with me what I already knew. It's a little scary at first, but once you learn to embrace your mind and your body talking back to you and telling you exactly where you should be and what you should be doing, wow, that's a game changer. And then you actually learn to expect it. And now you're going to do that journaling, spend the day listening, spend the evening listening, and quite frankly, don't get frustrated if you don't hear the answer right away. In fact, I found if I didn't hear the answer, I went to bed asking the same question I woke up with. And then I would go to bed, wake up. Sometimes I had the answer the next morning. I think it depends a little bit on the complexity of the question as to when you actually get the answer. Subconsciously, while you're driving somewhere, maybe taking a walk in the park and just kind of not thinking of anything and just really being relaxed that you get the answer. Or it could be while you're sleeping and that epiphany comes to you in a dream, or immediately upon waking up that you realize, aha, that was it. And that's weird that it came to me now. Again, embrace this and enjoy this. It's amazing. It's truly an amazing tool once you find it. Once you find it. So do create your vivid vision journal. I like a spiral page notebook because it keeps it intact. It allows me to keep track. I date the top right corner and I write. I do this almost every day. I carry it with me. When I'm done with one notebook, I grab another. Quite frankly, it's a pretty inexpensive way to get those thoughts on paper, as well as create that library of your thoughts. You never know. You might have to go back a couple pages and either congratulate yourself that you described and wrote something out, or just to remember what it was maybe a year ago that you were scribing and congratulate yourself that your scribing has certainly changed and evolve. Again, write three sensory details of your desired future. What is it that you want? Put this on paper. I also, like I said, like to add three things that I'm grateful for. And I feel that that opens the heart of gratitude so that you're open for anything. The I in pivot is the inventory reality. What are your strengths? What are these things that you're already naturally good at that you may already be incorporating in your personal or in your work life? Also recognizing, do you have any gaps? What are the resources that you have that, that you have access to that are allowing you to succeed where you're currently at and how those resources could evolve into your next step? One of the things I like to create a little bit is a skills matrix, kind of a left column, right column. Put down the things you're good at and things you're not so good at. Again, not that you're beating yourself up, but just understanding that you may not have certain skills that are sharp. Maybe you don't need them, but the skills that are natural, put those to use immediately and use those because you already have them. And then where you have gaps, work on those one at a time. Don't get overwhelmed. And you'll find that those gaps or some of those that are not so shiny in the skills matrix, you're going to polish those up and convert those to the next column. And now they're going to become something that's become habitual and natural to you. List 5 transferable wins. This is one way to close your gap is see how maybe something you've struggled with that you've learned from, kind of write that down and say, hey, I've learned from this. How can I learn again? How can I implement that again? That's certainly going to speed up the create the habit process while you're trying to shore up these small gaps. V in pivot is validate demand. Who needs this new version of you? See, we're all MVPs in this game called life. We just need to understand what game we're playing and the field we should be playing it on. You're not going to go bat a baseball on a football field. You're certainly not going to be the most valuable player at that. So understand what you're good at, what's your natural skills, what tools that you handle the best, and what field you go play those tools on. And many of this could be just like, I don't know, a discovery call, maybe coffee with a friend or a family member who can see kind of stepping back from where you're currently at and see your situation and say, hey, you really seem natural at this. It may be something you don't even know. So reach out and understand a little bit more about how you can be the MVP of your game. One of the ways to do this, as I mentioned, is coffee with a friend. Try to schedule at least 3 opportunities with different people. And you might find that they're not all the same thing. Not everyone recognizes the same thing in you. Your boss may recognize something of value that a friend doesn't recognize or doesn't see. And part of that's just how do you show up to each one of them? This helps you to better understand and learn what your natural skills are. Again, which ones you can focus on already being natural and help discover your gaps. This is a huge key to enhancing how you're going to pivot. And of course, O in pivot is optimize resilience. How are you going to stay fueled? One of the things I enjoy about life nowadays is that I almost challenge the alarm clock to wake me up because I am rested and I wake up and I look at the clock and go, I beat you. I'm getting up. Instead of the ever so common groan of the alarm clock buzzing, a couple rollovers, some taps on the snooze button, and then a large sigh of, ugh, I got to get up again. I'm sorry, I don't have that. I don't have that ugh of getting up. I want to get up. I can't wait to get up because I know that life has challenges before me and I can't wait to take them on. I can't wait to participate in life. So, how are you going to stay fueled to tackle this game of life? How are you going to be the MVP of this game? What's the fuel that you're going to stay motivated with? Turning your stress into strength, a lot of this is habits. And as I mentioned earlier, gratitude is a huge habit to already have. So if you don't have gratitude, let's start with there. Secondary, let's look into turning stress into strength. Don't look at life happening to you, but it is happening for you. Look at each challenge as an opportunity to learn something, to pivot, and to grow. Again, I like to always be grateful, but you can also stack your gratitude attitude. If you're grateful for one thing, challenge yourself to find another thing to add to that list of being grateful. I've also found that with a grateful attitude, more opportunities seem to shine towards me than necessarily wandering around in the darkness, constantly looking for that bright light. So optimize resilience and always be flexible. If something shows up in your life and it's just a little bit more challenging than you think, you know what? This might be the time to strengthen that muscle and see it as an opportunity of growth, not necessarily an opportunity of challenge. Don't look at it as this is another hurdle I have to take, but this is another learning experience I get to enjoy. And of course, T in pivot is transition boldly. Consider always what's your first visible move? What is it something that you can do today? And if you can't get the answer again as the previous step, if you don't get an answer today, ask yourself before you go to bed. And then when you wake up, ask yourself again, what is my first visible move? What is it that I need to be doing to go in that direction? That's where I start with all of my clients is what do we, they always want to know, what do I do first? What's the step? And a lot of times it's just not knowing what that is. But once we sit down and start understanding your soul's purpose, and once we start seeing what your natural gifts are, and through that analyzation, yeah, we start to set up what your power move is. And then we work forward. We begin to start running towards your momentum and towards that ritual of creating those habits. Because quite frankly, the more things that become habitual for you, the, again, if you ask the MVP player, they know they're great because they live it every day. But they also eat right, exercise, and do several things that are against the norm that anybody else on that field is doing, and that's what makes them great. So, what's your first move? If you're feeling lethargic physically, maybe the first thing you need to focus on is energy and then focus on what it is that you can do. Again, you kind of want to heal yourself. You want to have yourself in tuned. You want to have that self energizing fuel that keeps you motivated, and then figure out what it is that's your sole purpose and then move forward with action. Because quite frankly, you figure out what you want to do, but you're not trained to do it and sustain the long haul of activity to succeed in doing it. I got to be honest with you, it's already a recipe for failure. You really have to have both. So get yourself ready, see how you can adapt and change and create those healthy activities that become habits and you no longer think about them to now become your best self and create this process of doing what you enjoy doing. And again, those will become habits and you'll not think about that. And I can share with you that once you kind of get those first two steps completed, now you have the window of opportunity that is creation. And you can have those new ideas because all of these other things are just habitual. You don't think about it. I speak from experience and can share with you that I practice the pivot playbook. And I feel that it's made my life so much better. And that's why I share it with you and encourage you to just fill in some of these gaps in your own pivot playbook to help begin making you the best you and living your best life. You know, from corporate executives to wellness founders, they all have pivoted in some way. Greatest fear turned into a micro win. That created a resilience hack, if you will. So, how can you create a win from what you fear and then create resilience? Hashtag pivot with purpose, tagging Ask Adam Live. You can send me an email or log in on social media, and I am more than happy to share with you this pivot playbook in a PDF. How do you know it's time to pivot? Well, you kind of know because you're frustrated. And you're frustrated and you don't know why you're frustrated. And it's kind of from that frustration that you feel maybe overwhelmed and you feel almost like your feet are stuck in concrete and you just can't move forward. Many times that's just self doubt that you can't move forward. And it's not really concrete, it's just sand. And it sort of has that, as they subscribe, as they describe on the beach, there's a little bit of a suction. When water and sand kind of come together, they create a suction, if you will, and they won't allow your feet to come out from the sand. But you know, if you just wiggle a little bit and you get some air in and amongst the water, the suction stops and you're able to move forward. Many people have asked me, well, what if my family doubts the change? Well, I can tell you this, that if you change and become a happy person, if you change and become a successful person doing what you love, they're going to fall in love with you. They just don't understand the beginning process of what you're going through, and they don't really see the vision or the internal understanding that you're grasping, again, from journaling. So it's kind of an unknown. They don't know what you're going through, and sometimes it's hard to explain. So just be upfront and honest with them and share that you're going through something, you're working through something, and at the end of the day, it's going to be great. And just that you would appreciate their support, even though they might not understand. Remember, you can download the Pivot playbook. Will be at askadamlive.com/pivot. If you've enjoyed this episode, click like or subscribe. If you think someone might benefit from this episode, certainly encourage you to share the link to this episode with them. My name is Adam, and remember to make it a great day.